Morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed nationwide forecast update for April 7th, 2025. It's a cool, calm and dry picture across the nation's interior, especially over towards the east where we have had some cooler nights, but wet weather is set to return up in North Queensland in the next couple of days. Let's jump into the details on that right now. We are expecting troughs and low pressure systems to begin developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and those winds will strengthen from the southeast as well. A bit of a spoiler just there, but in short, we are expecting tropical low activity to develop around the Northern Territory and into the Gulf of Carpentaria very shortly in the next couple of days actually, and the southeasterly flow out of the Coral Sea is going to be enhanced, and that's why we are expecting more rainfall from showers and storms, especially into the Daintree rainforest, but also down along the Cassowary coast, extending south to Townsville. There is a lot of rainfall in the forecast, but it is going to be spread over an extended period of time, so let's jump into the forecast right now and get through the nitty-gritty of what is expected. First off, the broad picture, you can see the low pressure system beginning to develop as we get into the later parts of this week. A broad trough is expected to begin developing first north of the Northern Territory, which will then contract into a smaller low pressure system, and you can see consistent southeasterly winds, which will bring the odd shower or two to the Cassowary coast, are expected for today, tomorrow into Wednesday, and out towards Thursday. This tropical low is then going to begin strengthening by around Thursday or Friday, and keep in mind this is a congruent forecast between major forecast modellings, and then by Friday we are expecting enhanced rainfall across much of the Northern Territory top end, and then into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and then throughout the Cape York Peninsula as that onshore flow through the Coral Sea strengthens quite substantially through Friday and in towards next weekend. Rainfall is going to be heavy at times through Friday and in towards Saturday, and you can see rainfall persistent through Friday and Saturday before another low pressure system looks to develop in the Gulf of Carpentaria, again reciprocated between major forecast models as we head later on into the forecast period through Thursday, Friday and Saturday the 17th to the 19th of April respectively, and that will once again drive more rainfall up into Far North Queensland. For right now, the forecast is pretty congruent, especially for this week. Later on this week we are expecting heavy rainfall up in Far North Queensland, but beyond that there is a bit of a chance this rainfall does continue and is ongoing through this weekend. We are expecting Friday to be the wet day and kind of rainfall to be exclusive to Friday at this point in time, but there is a good chance that this rainfall lingers up in Far North Queensland through Saturday, Sunday, and even out towards early next fortnight as well, and that will obviously drive those rainfall accumulation numbers up quite substantially. In terms of those numbers, we are actually looking down the barrel of some pretty big numbers right now. Now, for those of you in flood-impacted parts of southwestern Queensland, there's no real rainfall on the forecast for the next 7 days, and there's no rainfall also falling in the catchment areas over the next 7 days as well. And also for those of you in flood-impacted areas around Townsville and even up towards Rollington and Paluma, whilst there is some good rainfall just to the north of you, for the most part the rainfall is hanging out of your location, and even it looks like the Herbert River catchment is going to miss out on the significant rainfall accumulations that we are seeing on the major forecast models at this time. But for those along the Cassowary coast and up into the Daintree rainforest, this is typical late season shower stuff that we're going to be seeing coming through up here, and as such the GFS forecast model is calling for up to 400 millimeters of rainfall in the next week or so. That is a big number from the GFS forecast model. Generally speaking, that's the GFS is the low ball out of the forecast models, and you can see it here on this forecast from the Eastern BF, but the GFS is really calling for some heavy rainfall to come through on Thursday night into Friday and Saturday, and it is plausible at this point in time. I do really reckon that we're going to see some very heavy falls through Friday, which could spark some moderate to even major riverine flooding up in the Cassowary coast and into the Daintree rainforest. Put it this way, we're going to be seeing at least 200 millimeters of rainfall for the wettest of locations through Thursday and into Friday, with higher accumulations up to 4 or even 500 millimeters possible cumulatively speaking through Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So some big time rainfall is on the cards. This is tropical stuff and certainly something for Far North Queensland residents to be paying quite close attention to. The Access forecast model, which is generally a high baller in terms of rainfall numbers, is calling for the majority of this rainfall to be further north, and you can see that there are some major discrepancies between these forecast models, with the GFS calling for the bulk of the rainfall around the Cassowary coast, the Eastern BF calling for a more varied spread of rainfall up on the Cape York Peninsula, and the Access G3 forecast calling for the bulk of the rainfall up around Lockhart River and Moomba in extreme northern Queensland. So it does give you an idea that the forecast right now is still a little bit murky, but I think we can say one thing for sure: if we do see a tropical low develop north of the Northern Territory around the Darwin area, we will likely see some very heavy rainfall around the Cassowary coast and especially up into the Daintree rainforest. Again, I don't really see this rainfall being too heavy south of the Hinchbrook Island area. Ingham's kind of the only the southerly most placed location that I could see getting some significant rainfall out of this weather event here. Townsville, Rollingston, Paluma Dam, those sort of areas that have been impacted by some dramatic rainfall accumulations so far this calendar year, not really seeing anything on the forecast for those locations apart from a couple of drops and dribs and drabs of rainfall coming through those locations. The forecast will become a lot more clearer through Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's often the case up in Far North Queensland. We get a day or two's worth of notice for this rainfall that we do see up there. So So again, if you are worried about flooding, or you still live in a very flooded area, or the catchments that you live around are extremely saturated right now, and you live in a flood-prone area as a result, I would start thinking about preparations for your property and home, moving stuff to higher ground, and getting some sandbags ready, because this is going to come through in quite a quick fashion. And again, considering how saturated the locations are up in Far North Queensland, it is not going to take much to flood them, that's for sure. I mean, even the mighty Burdekin River, which you can see in very similar fashion to how the southwest Queensland river systems are being shown on the satellite imagery, you can see the hairline fracture through the satellite picture here. That's the Burdekin River, and you can actually see, if I zoom right in here, this kind of, I guess, grey that's oozing out of the air area through this location here. That's the water flowing out of the Burdekin River at this point in time, which you can see is very muddy and very flooded, of course, very much significantly impacted by floodwaters, and that's oozing out of the Burdekin River catchment and visible on satellite imagery. So it gives you an idea of how much water is leaving North and Far North Queensland at this time, which should paint a pretty accurate picture in terms of how flooded they are up there right now, and how little rainfall they can actually tolerate. So again, the forecast for Far North Queensland a little bit murky at this time, and I want everybody to be taking this forecast with a relatively heavy pinch of salt. But if we do see tropical cyclone development north of the Northern Territory, which is looking very likely at this time, and again, I'll get to that in a later part of the forecast update, we'll see those southeasterly winds strengthen, and we'll likely see some convergent zones developing, or some streams of rainfall, which you can already actually begin to see on the satellite imagery right now, just convergent zones and bands of rainfall now moving into northern Queensland, which will provide areas around Cooktown and Hopevale with some meaty showers in the next couple of hours. Interesting stuff, that's for sure, and typical for this time of the year up in Far North Queensland. But again, I want everybody to be in the know and playing it safe and cool, calm and collected during this flooding event, or this rainfall event that could turn into a flooding event. No need to panic either. I feel like I need to add that as well. There's no need to be panicking about this weather event either. Just down into the southeast of Queensland and the northeast of New South Wales quickly, it looks like by around Friday we're also going to be seeing this high pressure ridge build in the Gulf of Carpentaria, not the Gulf of Carpentaria, sorry, the Tasman Sea. They couldn't get further apart from each other, which is going to, along a ridge, provide some showers that are going to stream in from the east, and could provide some meaty rainfall accumulations around the northeast of New South Wales as well. Especially through Friday night into Saturday morning, we could be seeing some isolated heavy falls, and totals up to 120 millimetres overnight Friday into Saturday around the areas such as Coffs Harbour, Grafton and up towards Lismore. Some lighter showers expected into the southeast of Queensland, but these heavy showers continuing on the New South Wales side of things through Saturday and into Sunday, before finally easing off by Monday and Tuesday. And you can see some respectable rainfall accumulations as a result on the forecast modelling here. So from Thursday to Thursday, this is a 7-day forecast picture right here. You can see accumulations up to 250 millimetres on the cards here outside of Coffs Harbour. So again, certainly something worth keeping in the back if you head. Friday night, we could see some heavy rainfall up there, and then once again Saturday night into Sunday morning, some isolated heavy falls turned into some widespread moderate heavy falls are possible north of Taree, through Kemps End, Coffs Harbour, Grafton and then up towards Lismore. Rainfall will be much lighter, but still there around the Gold Coast and Brisbane and up into the Sunshine Coast, but again, not expecting more than about 50 millimetres for those locations. Will be an interesting picture, that's for sure. You can actually see the low pressure systems dominating in the Great Australian Bight at this point, but we are seeing that high pressure ridge now really begin to build over New Zealand, which is going to give way to some cooler, calmer and dry conditions across the eastern seaboard of Australia throughout the next couple of days, and then by the looks of things towards the end of this week, drive those showers ashore into New South Wales and southeast Queensland once that ridge really does begin to build. Nothing on the cards for the southern states either, South Australia, Victoria or Tasmania, in the way of rainfall, so we'll skip through them today for efficiency's sake and time's sake for this video. Up into the Northern Territory now, where that tropical cyclone is now very likely to form, and if it is going to become a West Australian impact, it looks like the forecast has become a lot more likely for that at this point in time. So again, we're not seeing anything developing in the next 24 to 48 hours, that's for sure, but we will likely see a very broad low pressure system begin developing through tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening, which will begin contracting into a more centralised low pressure system north of the Northern Territory through Wednesday and into Thursday especially. We'll likely see a proper tropical low develop through Thursday and into Friday, and then this will likely undergo tropical cyclone transition through the later parts of this week into next weekend, around Saturday or Sunday the 12th or 13th of April. And again, once this transitions into a tropical cyclone, the rainfall will be at its heaviest for North Queensland, because that's when it's going to be drawing in the most energy and the most easterly winds from the Coral Sea. here. This system is then going to head away from the Northern Territory and down the WA coastline, and it looks like through Monday and Tuesday it's going to strengthen or do a good job at strengthening before heading down into the southwest corner of the West Australian basin, and it looks like it is going to end up dying down there as we get into the later parts of next fortnight into mid to late April. This system here certainly is going to have a long run by the looks of things. It's going to be around for at least a week, maybe up towards 10 days, and it also looks like it's got a significant chance of getting up towards severe tropical cyclone status. The good news is now that the jet stream is now far enough north as to where the only places that can realistically be impacted by a strong tropical cyclone on the WA coastline are those north of Broome. Those locations around Port Hedland, Karratha and Exmouth, the wind shear is now just too high for these systems, and as such, once they get down south to those locations, they do completely cark it. Sea temperatures won't be a problem for this tropical cyclone though. As we've discussed in previous forecast updates, sea temperatures are pushing 32 degrees Celsius along the coastline, and between 30 out towards 31, even 32 in places as we get offshore. Whilst they are beginning to cool, they're just so ludicrously hot right now that there is going to be plenty of energy available for this tropical low / tropical cyclone to make the most of, and as such, major forecast models are calling for a pretty significant jump in intensity, especially through the early parts of this weekend or this weekend coming. It looks like this system will do a good job at forming on Friday, and then through Saturday and Sunday, rapid intensification will kick in, and then at least at one point it is going to look to approach the WA coastline, and the chance of a landfall is there between Monday and Tuesday, the 14th and 15th of April respectively. It looks like this system is going to ultimately head away from the WA coastline. So for Western Australia, what can you expect in terms of this system here? For the extreme tippy top of the Kimberley region up around Columbia and Truscott, expect some heavier showers and some enhanced rainfall through the early parts of this week, especially Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Rainfall will then begin to drop off on Friday. Significant rainfall accumulations are not really expected, or not expected to be widespread, that's for sure, but you could still see up to around 50 to 100 millimetres of much needed rainfall, especially this time of the year as we head into the later parts of the wet season. All rainfall will be very welcome up there. Down towards Broome and Derby, really nothing in the way of impacts can be expected. Even if this system does really skim the coastline quite closely, it's going to be small enough by the looks of things to really not be a problem causer down there. And like I have said, there is the chance of a landfall, albeit a very slim chance, between Broome down towards Exmouth. Right now it's in a very low single-digit percentages, and it looks like those chances will get ironed out and bulldozed over the next couple of days. Like I said, wind shear is just too hostile right now for a tropical cyclone to theoretically head for the West Australian coastline. It looks like this system will either be steered away, or if it does go for the West Australian coastline, it will completely cark it before it makes its landfall, and will not be a problematic system whatsoever, which is good news because I certainly don't need any more tropical cyclone impacts, especially around Karratha or Port Hedland at this time of the year and after tropical cyclone Zelia. This system does have a good future ahead of it. Like I have said, conditions looking very healthy for it, extremely far offshore from the WA coastline up around the Rowley Shoals and even further north of those locations, but the chances of a WA impact are negligible at this point, and a significant impact is off the cards. So for those of you in Karratha, Onslow, Exmouth and Port Hedland that are watching this system quite closely, you can breathe a heavy sigh of relief. If this system's forecast does change, and there is a chance that it could as well, this is just a forecast at the end of the day and it isn't set in stone, I'll be the first to let you know, but we'll have plenty of time to prepare for this system here. So again, there's no need to be panicking, and there's also no need to be preparing for the worst case scenario at this point in time, because if this does change for the worst case scenario, you'll have plenty of time to adequately prepare for it, that's for sure. And I can guarantee everybody in the Kimberley region and the Pilbara region that as a fact right now. Anyways, interesting stuff for Western Australia, that's for sure. Certainly something to get excited about if you are into that kind of stuff. We are expecting some rainfall down in the southwest corner of Western Australia. Looks like some good rainfall has already fallen over the last couple of days, with locations picking up to 50 millimetres of rainfall into parts of the Wheatbelt region, and especially out into the Goldfields as well. Some good falls have been reported out there. More rainfall is possible over the next couple of days. You can see showers becoming a little bit more widespread throughout this afternoon and evening throughout the southeastern corner of the Wheatbelt, and it looks like showers will become widespread through the Perth metro area through tomorrow morning and into early tomorrow afternoon. Showers continuing through Wednesday offshore, and a few showers and storms expected here and there into the southwest corner of WA before another cold front comes through on Thursday, which will bring a few showers to the southwest capes, but apart from that, nothing else really expected. And then another cold front building and another low pressure system building on this weekend, which could bring some showers and some heavier rainfall through Sunday and in towards Monday, the 13th and 14th of April respectively. A couple of days of dry weather with a few cold fronts embedded in it before much later on into the forecast period. It looks like this low pressure system, the even remnants of the tropical cyclone, if it does make it down into the WA or into the southwestern part of WA, it's going to come in the form of remnants, which could combine with a stronger cold front, which we have been talking about for the last couple of days, to come through between the 17th and the 20th of April, which could be the kickstart and could open the floodgates to some more stronger cold front activity that we will likely be seeing starting in the next couple of weeks across the southwest corner of Western Australia. This is still a long way out on the forecast modelling, and it could bring some very healthy rainfall and some very helping rainfall as well to the southwest of Western Australia and through the wheat belt as well, and then up in towards the Gascoyne region and into the Pilbara region. So this would be a very good situation to have on the forecast, but at this point in time, still very uncertain at this point, and I don't think anybody should be betting any money on this situation happening. But again, it's an interesting factor to be looking at on the forecast modelling at this point in time, and certainly something to keep in the back of your heads and maybe start getting excited about if you are a farmer. The rainfall is not far around the corner, so even if this rainfall event does bust out, we will likely be seeing some more cold front activity, especially through very late April into early May. It is going to be a more gradual start to winter across the southwest of Western Australia. I feel like we're going to get eased into it a little bit more this year as opposed to just dunked in it head first like we have been for the last couple of years. So that is some good news, especially for people that aren't really expecting winter, because it has been so hot over the last couple of months across the Perth metro area especially. So the ease into winter will be very much appreciated, and it looks like cold fronts will start to become a little bit more widespread and a little bit more felt across the southwest of WA over the next couple of weeks and into the next month or so, which is very good news indeed. Don't get me wrong, there will still be some fine May days, and that's some very good news indeed, because they're some of the best times of the year, that's for sure. Just sunny weather and up into the mid-20s, so excited for that. But there will be some embedded rainfall, which will be very welcome indeed. It is going to feel a little bit more like a transition period as opposed to the last couple of years where it's been summer one day and then full-blown winter the next day. Anyways, interesting stuff on the forecast modelling, that's for sure. And then, like I said, boiling back to South Australia and Victoria, there's nothing at all to be talking about on the forecast modelling down there either. You can see rainfall over the next 14 days looking very disappointing for South Australia. A few drops here and there on the Eyre Peninsula and then down into Kangaroo Island. They could see up to 5 millimetres. And it's the same deal for Victoria as well, especially the western half of Victoria. Nothing in the way of decent rainfall on the forecast down there. Tasmania is just far south enough now as to where they're starting to pick up the top ends of those cold fronts that are sweeping through on a near daily basis at this point, and as such 50 millimetres is on the cards over the next 2 weeks there. But again, rainfall is looking very much below average still across Victoria and South Australia, and as such they are still currently experiencing some of the worst drought conditions on record over in those locations, and they're only forecast to get worse. You can see extreme drought conditions as we head in towards mid-April for parts of Western Victoria, and these locations are going to be very badly impacted, and as such very difficult to recover from these drought impacts through this winter. They're going to need an exceptional winter dump of rainfall to help them get out of the drought conditions that they're in down there, and it doesn't look like any of that is on the cards, not at least for the next month or so down there, which is quite sad news indeed. Keep in mind we are still in April, and winter doesn't fully begin to pipe up across Victoria until about mid-May, even in towards early June over the last couple of years. So winter is still a good month or so away, but it is certainly around the corner and certainly something to be getting excited about, that's for sure. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today's forecast update. If you have enjoyed it or found it informative, then please do leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of the support lately has been much appreciated. A special shout out, of course, for the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and again, I could not run the show without them. Their support is also much appreciated. But that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.